Been twice on the phone now with President Zelensky, and I told him this. We need to stick together, the United States, Ukraine and Europe, to bring Ukraine to a durable peace. So we clearly discussed this.
You said it was unfortunate. What did Zelensky say about it?
Well, of course, I'm not at liberty to disclose what we discussed. But what I clearly told him is that we really have to respect what President Trump has done so far for Ukraine. He was the one in 2019 who provided the javelins. These are lethal weapons. And without the javelins in 2022, when the full-scale attack started, Ukraine would have been nowhere. Of course, there was the training, particularly done by the UK and others. But it was primarily the javelins which make it able for Ukrainians to fight back. And without, they would not have stand a chance. So I told him we really have to give Trump credit for what he did then, what America did since then, and also what America is still doing.
OK, I want to put to you some of the words from Donald Trump that directly impact you, your job and your ability to do your job. When President Zelensky was talking about defending his country, and Donald Trump says that he's gambling with World War III. Is Donald Trump right?
Listen, I've spoken for half an hour on Thursday with Donald Trump on the phone, with President Trump. We are friends. We have worked for years together. I know he's committed to bring Ukraine to a durable peace. He's committed to NATO. Of course, he expects the European NATO partners and Canada to spend more and to ramp up defense production. And he is right there. So he is exactly on the spot when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to NATO, and we really need to work together on all of this.
But is he right in when he tells Zelensky that Zelensky is gambling with World War III? Listen, let me please not react to every sentence yesterday uttered in the Oval Office. But more generally, of course, it is important for Ukraine to get to a durable peace, as President Trump had said in the past, and also committed to yesterday. It should not be a sort of rerun of what we saw with the Minsk Accords in 2014. It should not be a Minsk III. It has to be a durable, lasting peace. And that is crucial to prevent war in the future. So there I am with President Trump, that it is important that Ukraine prevails here, that the outcome is enduring and will not be challenged by the Russians again. OK, you said where you are with Donald Trump. Are you with Donald Trump when he says to Zelensky, you're either going to make a deal or we're out? Are you with Donald Trump there? Listen, I want to focus now on the bigger picture here. And the bigger picture is that we have to move beyond what happened last night. What I told to President Zelensky is that I said, I think you have to find a way, dear Volodymyr, to restore your relationship with Donald Trump and the American administration. That is important going forward. The US, I know, is very much involved in this. It was Donald Trump who made the opening to the Russians, who basically broke the deadlock when it came to peace negotiations. So they have now started. It's the Europeans now, like tomorrow in London, under Keir Starmer's leadership. The Europeans coming together to really hammer out what the Europeans can do to support a future peace deal, which is not yet there, so step by step. But it is important that you start planning for this. And his visit, Keir Starmer's visit on Thursday, I think was very successful, because clearly there was a common understanding that we have to work on all of this together. Can you see a future where the US does stop its military support for Ukraine?
I'm absolutely convinced that the US wants to bring Ukraine to this durable peace. It was what all the administration senior people have told in the past, my discussions with President Trump. But obviously, what they need to get there is to make sure that we all work together on this. And it is important that President Zelensky finds a way to restore his relationship with the American president and with the senior American leadership team.
Just on the idea of the US withdrawing its military support for Ukraine, are NATO countries in a position to fill in that gap?
You know, let's move beyond this question, because it is crucial that we stay all in this together. The US, Ukraine, Europe, that we bring Ukraine to a peace. This is exactly what President Trump is fighting for, what we all are fighting for. We have to make sure that when a deal is struck,
that the deal is lasting. It was
but you can't just move. I'm sorry to interrupt. You can't just move beyond it when it was Donald Trump himself who said either there's a deal or the US is out. You can't move beyond that.
Again, I'm not going to comment on every sentence which was uttered yesterday in the Oval Office. As I said, it was an unfortunate meeting. I think Zelensky should find a way to restore his relationship with President Trump. That is important going forward. But I know as a fact that the American administration is extremely invested in making sure that Ukraine gets to this durable peace. And we have to work on this together. And the Europeans will have to play a role here.
And on to the summit tomorrow then that you mentioned earlier in London. Clearly topics of conversation, agendas, running orders will have been ripped up and started again now, given what happened in the US. What would be a concrete success story from this summit for you?
What I expect coming out of tomorrow is many countries tomorrow saying that if a peace deal is struck, and again, it is not yet there. When I discussed it with President Trump and with others in the American administration, they rightly said we first have to get to a peace deal before we can keep the peace, which is absolutely clear. But when a peace deal is struck, it is important, and I think that will come out of tomorrow, that many European countries are willing to help to make sure that the security guarantees are in place in Ukraine to make sure that that peace deal is lasting and will not be challenged by the Russians again in the future. Again, like happened in 2014 after Crimea and the Minsk Accords, which were immediately challenged because there were no security guarantees in place.
OK, and lastly, Secretary General, the EU Foreign Policy Chief saying the free world needs a new leader. Does it?
No, you know, the situation is very simple. The US is over 50% of NATO. In all my discussions with the Americans, they are extremely invested in NATO, including in Article 5. And US being the biggest country, therefore, is the leader within the NATO alliance. Of course, with all the other leaders of all the other 31 allies. But the US is so big, is so important, has so much political and, let's say, power in terms of the defense capabilities and the projection collectively we can make on the world stage. NATO acting together. Basically twice the size of the US economy is also in the interest not only of Europe but also of the US. So we will stay together, we will work together, and here in Europe we will have to spend more and ramp up the production.
That's Mark Rutte.